Welcome back for another book talk video. It's Magical Monday time, which means I get to talk about a fantasy. Today I'm very excited to talk about The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This is a really fun story. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, which means I definitely recommend it, not just as a good book to read, but a little something special, a little something more in this book than what you might typically find. And I'm not the only one who liked it a lot, even though this book did not win overall for the Goodreads 2020 Best Fantasy Book. It did come in 3rd place, and I think that that is quite an accomplishment. If you've seen my previous video about the book that won 1st place, you know I was not a huge fan. I really did wish that this book, or Brandon Sanderson's Rhythm of War, or Susanna Clarke's Spirit and Essay would have won the category. I've not read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which came in 2nd place by V.E. Schwab, or The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, but I do want to read them at some point when my TBR isn't quite so full. I do hope to eventually get to them. But this book stands out to me. It's as if the company Pixar that makes all those fun digital animated films decided to write a novel. That's very much what the cover reminds me of and what the children characters in the book remind me of. The children, to me, I was picturing like Monsters Inc., Monsters University, those kinds of characters for the kids in the book, which is why it makes me think of Pixar. This story really reads as something that is for a younger audience, maybe middle school aged people, but I still really enjoyed it because it's a heartwarming story. It's really an allegory for a special ed school of elementary or middle school age children. You've got their teacher slash caretaker. It's called an orphanage. It's not called a school, but that's what's going on at the orphanage. They are learning lessons for life. And the main crux of the story is that our protagonist is an investigator. He works for the company that runs all the orphanages, and he travels to them to determine if they should be shut down, if there are any dangers, if the people working there should be fired and replaced, all of that sort of thing. And that character comes across as someone who traditionally has been very much emotionally detached and lives a solitude type of existence where he just does his work, considers himself serious, and goes home. Doesn't seem to really have much in his life. So when he travels out to this island and to this community, it really touches his heart. He bonds with these children. He feels a special connection with the guy who runs the school, which does end up turning into a romance story, though it's a very light romance story. The book is also somewhat light on plot. It is, for a fantasy book, really light on world building, but that's okay. It's a simple story, and the only sense of magic and magical creatures that we need to understand the story is understanding the children and how the children are magical creatures. You do have a little bit more with the island and the people living on the island, but mostly that's it. That's all the magic that you need to know. It's not as if the author was concerned with creating a grand fantasy world, epic in scale, because this is a very small scale story. It's very much about interpersonal relationships. It's about a man who was closed off, who allows himself to start feeling emotions and start feeling connections with other people. Of course, that creates the big conflict in the story, which is trying to decide for that character what to do about the school and the situation, because they obviously are not following all the rules, regulations, and protocols that they're supposed to. And that's part of the special ed school allegory, because if you've ever worked in schools, you know it is impossible to follow every rule and regulation and really customize that educational experience for what each student needs. And so I very much know that anyone who has ever been a teacher or worked in schools is going to probably love this story, and at some point at least consider tearing up, if not outright crying and needing a tissue box to deal with that. It's a good story overall, simple story, easily predictable, and yet still very much an enjoyable read. I highly recommend The House in the Cerulean Sea. I hope that you've enjoyed today's book talk. Every day is a good day for a book talk. Read the book. Peace.